Hey everybody, welcome to this morning's edition of Through the Lens. We're on episode 21 and we're going to be talking about the Vatican, UFOs, and the end times. And my purpose of this conversation is really to bring some light to a conversation that is going on and has been going on for the past few years now at least, and probably even longer, regarding the connection of the Vatican, the Pope, what they're saying and talking about having to do with UFOs, connecting that with the U.S. government. And hey, we know that we are in the last days, or maybe even the last of the last days. We are getting so close, guys, and we know that the Word speaks about such deception. Throughout the Word, such deception coming upon the world that is in the world, but will continue to grow up to and including the time of the end and during and through the tribulation. And so we're going to have this conversation here today and go over these things. I find it very interesting that the Roman Catholic Church has 1.37 billion people worldwide that consider themselves Roman Catholics. And the Roman Catholic Church has quite a bit of power. I mean, you go there to Rome, you've got what's called Vatican City. In fact, it even has its own zip code. In fact, many people don't even realize this, but the Vatican has its own ambassadors to various nations. Like there's an ambassador from the Vatican to the United States. I mean, think about that. Isn't that just kind of odd in and of itself that you've got that kind of religious and governmental connection? Well, hey guys, all I know, not saying that this is that, all right? I'm not. But all I know is that I find it very fascinating that when you read in the Bible and you see during the time of the tribulation that you've got the rise of the Antichrist, the one world global leader, and the false prophet who really supports him, goes along with him, and the false prophet is the one world leader of the one world global religion. So we're continuing to find these things come together. Guys, I'm not saying that the Vatican and that or that the Pope is going to be, or a Pope is going to be the false prophet. I have absolutely no idea. But what I find interesting that we can track is those connections. Nonetheless, we know that the Word speaks about a great deception that is going to be brought upon mankind in these last days. In fact, in Matthew chapter 24, verses 4 and 5 there, it talks about it. When Jesus, in giving caution really to his disciples, said, "Take heed that no man deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many." Again, deception, a part of the last days. And guys, we got a couple of videos here. We're going to show you a number of things that I think you're going to find pretty interesting. But listen, it says in Matthew 24:24, "For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's elect." And so we see these things. We look in the book of Revelation. Now listen, Revelation chapter 13. Verses 13 and 14, it says, "He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who was wounded by the sword and lived." Again, we see a lot of deception, so much deception during the time of the tribulation. Not only that, but I'd like you to check this out as well. When we look in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, beginning in verse 9, and let's read this here. It says, "The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders." Wow. and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not love the truth, that they might be saved. In other words, they're going to be deceived because they chose not to love the truth, to love the Lord, to follow the Lord. And hey, they are the ones that are going to be easy pickings, so to speak, for the enemy. And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not that they could not, but they chose not, they did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So wow, folks, I mean, the time coming upon the world here is going to be quite evil and quite wicked that we see. So let's take a look at some of these things here, guys. And I'd like to start off with this video here, and we're going to stop and start here. So it's going to take a few minutes to go through part of this, and then I'm going to show you some other things. I think you're going to find this all rather interesting. Let's begin with this video here. Again, whistleblower. This was on News Nation, right? Pope, right on the news. They're talking about these things. It's right out there in front of everyone. Pope Pius the 12th told U.S. of alien craft, and that's just that pope. We've seen the current pope involved in these things, the previous pope involved in these things. It's really interesting, but let's begin to take a look here.
So we have been digging into so many of the allegations that David Grush has made, and we had to dig into this too. We had to look into it. It's a wild allegation. Again, I get it. Catholic Church and UFOs. We've been trying to get reaction from the Vatican. We've been working behind the scenes, and joining me live, steps from the Vatican right now, is News Nation executive producer Susanna Pinto. She was previously a Rome-based reporter who has also worked in the Vatican press office. Thank you for being on with us tonight, Susie. I've got to ask you, you've been working on this for quite some time. You're in Rome. What have you been able to learn from Vatican officials about what David Grush had claimed to us in that interview?
So she's about to share this whole thing of what took place there in a congressional hearing. It's absolutely phenomenal. I know that some of you have seen some of these things, but guys, the thing that I find most interesting, again, is the connection of all of this with the Vatican. Again, government, religion, aliens, UFOs, so-called aliens. I do not believe that aliens are real, but if there is something that is taking place, that it is a demonic deception. Anyhow, really interesting. Let's continue.
Good evening, Brian. You can see St. Peter's Basilica behind me, perhaps the most iconic and powerful symbol of the Catholic Church around the world. And yes, as you said, this is a shocking claim. The fact that the allegation that the Vatican might have known about non-human intelligence on Earth. So I've reached out to the Vatican press office for comment. The Vatican has not responded. Now, that's not unusual. This is a highly controversial issue, and it's not unusual for the Vatican to not want to comment on such a controversy.
So again, there's this whole conversation going on, and it's being brought to light here on national news, guys. National news. Okay, let's go on.
Also, though, if there were credible information about life on another planet, life in another part of the universe, it would also bring up a lot of theological questions and a lot of debate. And so it's not surprising that the Vatican doesn't want to speculate on this issue right now.
I know you've been trying for at least the last week or so to get a response from the Vatican. Do you expect that something will come out eventually, or are they just saying, like, no comment, we are never going to talk about this?
So again, I can't underscore this enough, that this is being talked about on national news. I know people want to say, oh, conspiracy theories and all these kinds of things. But guys, listen, I want you to think about this for a moment. We know that great deception is going to be brought upon the world. We know that, and we're going to get back to this clip here in just a moment. We know that great deception is going to be brought upon the world. We know that the rapture of the church is going to take place. And I mean, just think to yourself for just a moment. The final Antichrist, the one world global governmental leader who will end up coming to power after the rapture of the church, right? You've got the false prophet who is going to unite the global religions together. He's going to be in cahoots, we see in Scripture, with the final Antichrist, right? And people are going to be talking, what happened to millions of people? What happened? Where did they go? They vanished. They're gone, right? What happened? Someone's got to come up with some kind of an answer or a lie, right? And could this be it? Aliens, spacecraft, they came and they abducted mankind, or they abducted some of these people to run experiments on them, or who knows what, guys? And maybe that won't happen, all right? But I find it very interesting that we see, again, connection between religion, government, this uptick in UFO conversation, and especially at this point in time. Let's continue.
Well, look, we do know that the archives pertaining to Pope Pius XII's pontificate have been open to scholars and historians. That happened in 2020. Pope Francis announced that he was going to open up the archives to historians and scholars, so that they have been looking into his pontificate. And of course, it was a long pontificate. He was Pope from 1939 to 1958.
Okay, so look at this. Whistleblower, Pope Pius XII told U.S. of alien craft. Guys, this is absolutely insane. You can't make these things up. And if you go further in this this report from News Nation, they get into talking about something else here that we're going to talk about in just a moment. So hold on to that. But about the Vatican's observatory, their space observatory. What on earth does the Vatican need an observatory for? You ever think about that? Maybe you didn't even know that they have one. That is very interesting. Again, the Vatican has approximately 1.4 billion people in the world that consider themselves Roman Catholic. So this is quite an influence. We also see that the Vatican has been making inroads in connecting Roman Catholicism with Islam, which we've been calling probably over the past 15 years or so, Chrislam, all right, which again is another issue. All of this coming together. All right, so listen now. This article was in the Daily Star. Pope to hold press conference of aliens and supernatural, and people are confused. A press conference on this. Again, they're just the fact that the Pope would even be addressing these things. The last time the Vatican held a press conference about aliens and supernatural phenomenon was in February of 1978. So again, very interesting. He holds this press conference, nothing much to talk about really, but again, that we keep on seeing these things coming up. We keep on seeing a connection there. So, and in fact, Pope Francis did touch on aliens at the end of, I think this was now almost 2 years ago, when he was talking about how early Christians discussed associating with Jews, this is interesting, with Jews and Gentiles, which for some reason he compared to aliens. Okay, guys, this is wackadoo stuff here, wackadoo stuff. All right, let's move on from that. Prophecy News Watch, quite a few years ago now, this is probably about 11 years ago, Vatican astronomers have reportedly been working toward locating extraterrestrial life. Earlier in March, again, this was 11 years ago, the Vatican Observatory co-sponsored a major conference on extraterrestrial life that brought together 200 of the leading astrobiologists in the world. Why is it that the Vatican, that the Roman Catholic religion is getting so heavily involved in this kind of conversation? What the Vatican astronomers are saying now is that aliens, are coming here. Vatican astronomers, that they're coming here and that they are going to baptize us into their faith. Wow. Guys, this is crazy. And it's going to require people to make changes to their knowledge and to their understanding of the gospel. Not my words, their words. In fact, some of the deepest theologians have said, and I quote, "Perhaps everything we think we know about the gospel is going to have to be thrown out." That's a direct quote. Guys, this is absolutely phenomenal. Remember what it says in the book of Galatians, chapter 1. "But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached unto you, let him be accursed." Guys, absolutely crazy times that we find ourselves in today. So again, we're already now talking about Vatican astronomy, the Vatican Observatory, how they brought together 11 years ago 200 of the world's top men and women involved in all of this, and that is what they're talking about. That's what they're saying, and that this may bring about a change to the gospel. Guys, think about, obviously, the theological things involved here. Great deception. You know, then there's this right here, mails or emails, whichever, sent by astronaut Edgar Mitchell to John Podesta. All right, remember that name from the past. Cite an impeding space war and the Vatican's knowledge of alien life. Wow. Now, this was in mails that go back to 2015, guys. Podesta was serving as counselor to President Barack Obama. All right. So again, another government connection, connecting with the Vatican with so-called aliens and UFOs, changing the gospel, all of these things, guys, these things can't be ignored when you've got the Roman Catholic Church that leads 1.4 billion people globally as it stands right now. Podesta was serving as counselor to President Barack Obama during the exchange before he left the position to become chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. These emails emerged before Monday's second batch of the Podesta emails. You guys remember this? Which were released by WikiLeaks. Guys, wow. There's so much that we could unpack here, but we got to move on. Okay. So again, all of these things we find interconnected, and they're talking about this meeting with Podesta to bring us up to date. The Catholic College, okay, talking about the meeting with Podesta to, quote, bring us up to date on the Vatican's awareness of these things, guys. I mean, wow. You cannot make this kind of stuff up. Folks, I'll tell you, we live in a time of great and incredible deception, don't we? I mean, it's just, it really is. It's incredible deception that we find ourselves in today. And we know that things are moving like a freight train towards global one world religion, global one world government. We see the interconnectedness of them. And there's so much I could say about that. And even this right here, that it was shocking to read. This was quite a few years ago now. In October's New York Times, the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, okay, look it up, proposed an overhaul of the world's financial systems and a supranational authority to oversee the global economy that's interesting, because when we look in Revelation chapter 13, right, at the end of Revelation chapter 13, we see the global economy coming into play. We see in that whole chapter, we see the Antichrist and the global government, the false prophet, the one world religion. We see the image of the beast. You see the mark of the beast that no one would be able to buy or sell unless they had the mark. This is absolutely wild, guys. Wild, all of this. And it's interesting that in 2009, Time Magazine, so think about this, guys. We're talking about national TV, News Nation. We're talking about the New York Times. Now we're talking about Time Magazine article that had featured a similar story entitled "The Vatican's Radical Ideas on Financial Reform." So, wow, what is the Vatican getting involved in global financial reform for? Again, crazy, crazy stuff. But here we find all of these things coming together and interconnected. Oh, guys, it gets, well, I was going to say better, but worse, actually. Is what. So, all right, what about this? Would you baptize an extraterrestrial? Do you know that that's a book? It is. Would you baptize an extraterrestrial is the title of this book, and other questions from astronomers, right? Wow, guys. You can't make these things up. Okay, so in box at the Vatican Observatory. Wow. Again, all of these things interconnected. So check it out. Would you baptize an extraterrestrial? And so the Roman Catholic Church has actually been having these kinds of conversations. Wow. They're actually talking about it. That, well, if the little green guys, or whatever, supposedly, were to come down and hey, they're God's creatures too, right? It's interesting, the deception. You get into Genesis chapter 6, for example. Genesis chapter 6, and you see the sons of God, those fallen angels, come down and have relations with the daughters of men. That race of Nephilim, the giants of old, right? Remember that Goliath was one of those giants, and who was it? David, the shepherd boy before he became king, ended up taking him down, right? He recognized that, hey, the battle belongs to the Lord. And you're coming against the Lord and the armies of the Lord, and I'm coming against you in the name of the God of the armies of Israel, and man, what an incredible story that is. And we can go to the conquest of Canaan, another example of that, and so many others, right? King Og. Crazy stuff, guys. It's all there in your Bible. All right, so let's continue with this. We're going to look here at this next video clip. Let's check this one out.
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrial?
So again, the House of Representatives, the House, holds a hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAPs, or what we used to call UFOs. It's all the same thing, guys, all right? I mean, they're talking about it. Wow. All right, let's listen.
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Oh, biologics came supposedly with some of these things here. So I mean, wow! And by the way, if you look at the screen here, the older gentleman there in the gray hair, white shirt, and red tie off to the side here of him, that's a veteran journalist and news reporter right here from Las Vegas, Nevada, George Knapp. And he has literally spent the greater portion of his life investigating these kinds of things. So just a side note of who's in the background there, but let's continue.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
I mean, guys, right there, hidden, I don't know, in plain sight. And what do we see? This is on NBC News Now. So there's another one, right? News Nation, NBC News Now. We're talking about Time Magazine, New York Times, I believe it was. And we can go on and on and on. All right, let's continue.
Documentary evidence is video, photos, eyewitness, like how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
So in other words, there are things that are so private here that involve matters of national security, right? This is what he's saying, that I cannot talk about these things in a public setting like this, which is on TV and nationally and globally. It has to be talked about in a highly secure location, the skiff, right, where they're not allowed to bring their cell phones in. They're not allowed to, kind of what's discussed there stays there, that kind of thing. Highly secretive, highly sensitive. Continuing to speak about those things. We can only speak about those things, he said, with the knowledge that I have and how it affects U.S. interests and military movements and all of these kinds of things have to be talked about in the skiff. And that is right there with congressional members investigating these things. I mean, guys, we can't ignore these things. And I think that the enemy truly... Well, at least this is just my opinion. I think that there is a pretty good chance that the adversary is going to do everything that he can to utilize these things to bring about additional deception. Could that deception be, like I said earlier, trying to explain away the missing people, right, from the rapture? Could it be something else? I don't know. Perhaps nothing will come of it, but again, I find all of these connections rather interesting, especially at this particular time. And in fact, there's even a body language expert that has broken down all of the elements of David Grush there in his whistleblower testimony, and they look into these things, and again, they don't find anything when you have these body language experts. It's really fascinating to watch them. You can watch how they pick apart different things online, oftentimes presidential speeches, and how they can tell if they're lying through their teeth or if they believe what they're saying. And that's basically the case with this right here. That with the body language experts, that all we can say is that David Grush truly believes what he's saying, and he has everything to lose, by the way. His connections here with national security and with the U.S. government, he truly has everything to lose by coming forward. But he is truly speaking, at least what he believes to be true from information that he has seen, and that he has heard. Okay, then there is this one. Newsweek, speaking about this, congressman says that he saw, quote, top secret UFO information on extraterrestrial crafts. That same congressman says that alien UFO technology is being reverse engineered in secret. Interesting. What about this one here? This one was in Politico. A skull and bones type vibe is what this is called. Spy agencies grapple with how much to share at UFO hearing. So listen, as Congress prepares to hold the first public hearing on UFOs in half a century, the Pentagon, so even the Pentagon's involved with this, guys, and intelligence agencies are feuding internally, I should say, over how much to cooperate with demands to investigate and to share what they know, according to current and former national security officials. And again, this whole thing and this whole account goes on as well. The biggest question may be whether the Pentagon is being fully transparent with Congress, which I would say that 100% they have not been. It goes on to say the intelligence official described another faction inside the military and intelligence agencies that, quote, takes this subject very seriously and is protective of UAP or UFO related data. It goes on to say that they fetishize their secret society. Interesting, the official said. It's kind of a skull and bones type of vibe. Wow. They take it seriously, but they have no accountability. Zero. There is a whole group of us that know, a whole group of us, it says, that know in great detail this subject, a lot of which has not been reported to Congress because of security issues. All right, want to take it even to another level. We're talking about Congress, we're talking about intelligence agencies, we're talking about the Pentagon. We're talking about news agencies, right? How about this one? The Daily Star reporting proof of aliens will lead to new religions. Goes back to something we were talking about earlier there, right? To new religions, and how the Vatican, I've got direct quotes from the Vatican saying that we would baptize aliens. Wow. But anyhow, proof of aliens will lead to new religions and massive military spending. And then it says, Barack Obama, former U.S. president, says many people's religious beliefs will change if it's ever proved alien life does exist. Why would a president even be throwing out that little nugget out there, that little cookie crumb out there? Because there's things that they know, and there'll be calls for huge amounts to be spent on arming ourselves, said former President Barack Obama. Wow. I mean, let's even remember under President Donald Trump's first administration, he set up the United States Space Force. Guys, let's take a look at this here on the screen. Look at this right here. This is from spaceforce.com. This is another part of our armed forces, right? Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all of this. United States Space Force. That's one of the screen grabs that I took from there. There's another one right here. Secure our nation's interest in, from, and to space. When our enemies ask, what if, we will have an answer. That's interesting. Okay, look at this right here. Space now defines our daily lives and the modern way of war. And then you've got the whole insignia or symbol of the Space Force. And I don't have time today to go into all of these little red dots that are on here as to what they mean and symbolize with this, but it's called the Delta, right? And then they've got their guardian values, and you continue on that page and you can read about what their guardian values are. Right? Guys, things are moving in that direction. We see the advancements in modern science. We see what is going on with AI, that's artificial intelligence, AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? Quantum computing, OI, organoid intelligence, all of these things. I mean, things are just off the rails. Off the rails. But folks, listen, God is in control here. And look, we don't believe in aliens. We don't believe in UFOs, but so much of a Christ-rejecting world does. And I just wonder, I just have to ask the question, after the rapture of the church, maybe even more of the world will begin to believe in those things, because maybe they will believe because they will be deceived. I don't know, something to think about. We know in John 8:44 that Satan is described as a liar and the father of lies. Revelation 12:9, it shows that Satan as the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the world astray. Then you see in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, as it says that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light, which illustrates his ability to deceive through false appearances. Wow, guys, I mean, what a time that we find ourselves in. But listen, I'm going to leave you with this today. It says in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 22 through 25, it says, "Let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful," right? "And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works." And what do we see in those verses there? We see faith, we see hope, we see love. And then it ends here in verse 25, "Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as in the manner of some, but exhorting," or in other words, encouraging one another, "and so much the more as you see the day approaching." Guys, listen. Don't fall for the lies of the enemy and the lies of the world, and that there's all of this extraterrestrial life out there, and follow the spirit beings and all of those things. Don't listen to what the Vatican is saying and all of these things. Guys, great deception is in the world, and that deception is growing. But guys, we are not deceived, because our trust and our faith is in Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord. We are trusting in the Lord, and we are trusting in His holy word. Guys, God bless you. Look forward to seeing you next time, whether here, there, or in the air. God bless.